The oldest person in recorded history lived to 122 years old. Her name was Jean Calment, and she celebrated exactly 0 birthdays for the first 5 decades of her life. Because until 150 years ago, birthdays didn't exist for most people on Earth. Not because they didn't want to celebrate, because they literally had no idea when they were born. Hi guys, I'm Monty and I'm a linguist and a history enthusiast. I create videos that give you a new perspective on modern concepts. If you learned something from this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to my channel to help me grow and create more of this kind of content. And let me know in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about in my next video. We take birthdays so completely for granted that it's almost impossible to imagine a world without them. The cake, the candles, the happy birthday song. It all feels as natural as breathing. But here's what'll blow your mind. Regular people celebrating their birthday is newer than the light bulb. It's about as old as the telephone. Your great-great-grandmother might never have had a birthday party in her entire life. This isn't just some quirky historical footnote. The invention of birthdays represents one of the most profound shifts in human consciousness. The moment we started thinking of ourselves as individuals moving through time rather than just members of a community existing in an eternal present. The story of how birthdays came to exist is really the story of how we learn to see ourselves as separate people with our own personal timelines. And it all started with a problem that seems absurd today. Nobody knew when they were born. Let's start with the most basic question. Why didn't people know their birthdays? The answer isn't what you'd expect. It wasn't because they were stupid or primitive. Ancient civilizations had incredibly sophisticated calendars. The Egyptians were using a 365-day solar calendar by 3000 BCE, though it was less precise than the Julian calendar Caesar would roll out 3000 years later. The Greeks had complex lunar solar systems that could predict eclipses. The Maya calculated the length of a year to 365.2420 days. We now know it's 365.2422 days. They were off by about 17 seconds. The problem wasn't calendars. The problem was record keeping. And more fundamentally, the problem was that individual birth dates simply didn't matter to anyone. Think about it from the perspective of a medieval peasant. Your life was governed by seasons, not dates. You planted when the ground thawed, harvested when the grain was ready, celebrated at communal festivals tied to agricultural cycles. Your identity came from your family, your village, your lord, your church. The exact day you emerged from your mother's womb? Completely irrelevant. Your age was measured in rough approximations. Old enough to work, old enough to marry, too old to fight. Even when births were recorded, it was almost never for the person themselves. Some of the earliest birthday-like celebrations we can document come from ancient Egypt around 3000 BCE, when pharaohs marked the anniversary of their coronation, their rebirth as gods, not their human birth. The Romans were the first civilization to celebrate birthdays for ordinary citizens, but even then, it was mostly men and mostly the wealthy. A Roman man turning 50 might get a special cake made with wheat flour, olive oil, grated cheese, and honey. But here's the crucial detail. Roman women rarely received birthday celebrations, and when they did, it was mainly among the upper classes and much later in Roman history. For most of human history, your individual existence simply wasn't considered worth commemorating annually. But there's something even more fundamental happening here. In most pre-modern societies, people didn't think of themselves as individuals moving through linear time. They thought of themselves as part of cyclical, communal time. In medieval Europe, many people didn't even know their numerical age. They knew they were born in the year of the Great Frost, or when the Danes came. Time was collective, not personal. The real shift begins in an unexpected place, 16th century England, when King Henry VIII mandated that churches document baptisms starting in the 1530s. But here's what's fascinating. This wasn't about birthdays at all. Henry was trying to establish legal proof of legitimacy for inheritance disputes and marriage laws. The birth records were bureaucratic tools, not celebrations waiting to happen. For the next 300 years, even people who had their birth dates recorded rarely celebrated them. The Puritans in colonial Massachusetts kept meticulous birth records starting in the 1600s, but they considered birthday celebrations to be pagan rituals. They weren't wrong. The early Christian church had banned birthday parties entirely, viewing them as remnants of Roman paganism that honored false gods. The transformation really accelerates during the Industrial Revolution, but not for the reasons you might think. It wasn't about prosperity or leisure time. It was about the fundamental reorganization of how humans experience time itself. Before industrialization, most people lived by what historians call task time. You worked until the job was done, whether that took 2 hours or 12. Farmers didn't punch time clocks, artisans didn't have shift schedules. But factory work required clock time, precise coordination of when people showed up, when they took breaks, when they went home. Suddenly, everyone needed to know exactly what day it was, what time it was, and crucially, exactly how old they were. This is where it gets really interesting. Age-based requirements started popping up everywhere. Schools began grouping children by age rather than ability. Labor laws set minimum ages for different types of work. Military service had age requirements. Insurance companies needed to calculate risk based on precise ages. For the first time in human history, your exact numerical age became legally and economically important. The historian Howard Chudakoff argues that Americans developed age consciousness between 1850 and 1880, the awareness of your precise age as a meaningful category. Before this period, most people thought of themselves as young, middle-aged, or old. After this period, they started thinking, I am 23 years old, or I am 47 years old.
And here's where birthdays finally emerge. Once you're hyper-aware of your numerical age, the annual transition becomes psychologically significant. The first mass-produced birthday cards appeared in the 1880s. The Happy Birthday song was written in 1893. By 1900, middle-class American children were having birthday parties as a standard ritual. But there's a darker side to this story. The same age consciousness that created birthdays also created age anxiety. Those 1920s birthday cards weren't celebrating aging, they were apologizing for it. A 1926 card read, I know your age, but I'll keep it mum, if you'll do the same when my birthdays come. The invention of birthdays and the invention of age-related shame happened simultaneously. Here's what's truly mind-bending. We're still living through this transformation. As recently as 1950, Japan officially used a system called kazoidoshi, where everyone aged up together on New Year's Day, not on individual birthdays. South Korea used multiple age systems simultaneously until the 1960s. Your Korean age, your year age, and your international age could all be different numbers. Even today, the birthday industrial complex keeps evolving. The destination birthday party, bowling alleys, museums, swimming pools emerged in the 1950s. The fully outsourced birthday party industry didn't exist until the 1980s. Instagram-worthy birthday celebrations are maybe 15 years old. We're still inventing new ways to make individual birthdays more elaborate and more public. But here's the deeper implication. Birthdays aren't just about cake and presents. They're about a fundamental shift in how humans understand themselves in relation to time and community. The rise of birthday culture parallels the rise of individualism, consumer capitalism, and what sociologists call the modern self. In traditional societies, your identity was fixed by birth, your family, your class, your role in the community. Birthdays represent the idea that you're constantly becoming someone new, that each year marks personal growth and change. The birthday celebration is really a ritual acknowledgement that you're the author of your own life story, moving through time as an individual agent rather than just a member of a collective. This explains why some groups still resist birthday culture. Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays, viewing them as self-glorifying and pagan. Some indigenous cultures emphasize naming ceremonies and coming-of-age rituals tied to achievements rather than arbitrary calendar dates. They're not being contrarian, they're maintaining older ways of understanding human identity and time. The birthday revolution also reveals something profound about modern anxiety. We're the first humans in history who are constantly aware of our exact age, constantly measuring our progress against imaginary timelines,
constantly feeling like we're behind or ahead for our age. The phrase 30 is the new 20 or 40 is the new 30 would be meaningless to someone from 1800 who probably didn't know their exact age anyway.
The next time you blow out birthday candles, remember, you're participating in one of humanity's newest rituals. You're performing a ceremony that your ancestors couldn't even imagine, because they lived in a world where individual time didn't exist, where your personal timeline was irrelevant, where the day of your birth was just another day in an endless cycle of seasons and generations. Birthdays didn't exist until we invented the modern self, and maybe that's the most surprising thing of all, that something so fundamental to how we see ourselves is actually a very recent experiment in human consciousness. We're still figuring out what it means to be individuals moving through time, one birthday at a time.